Welcome to your Vital Life Choice, latest exploration, science truth.
Hey everyone, let's jump right into this explainer. Today we're unpacking a seriously fascinating presentation brought to us by Vital Life Choice Ltd. They're an organization dedicated to using cutting-edge science to guard our health and really help ease human suffering. And the research we're looking at today, it's called Type 1 Diabetes, the Transgenerational Epigenetic Blueprint. Brace yourselves, because what we're about to uncover is going to completely rewrite the rules on how dietary triggers and cellular memory impact the health of the next generation. Now, just a quick note before we dive down into the microscopic details. This explainer is strictly for scientific communication. We're here to demystify the biology behind these breakthroughs, so, this isn't medical advice or a guide for treatment. Our goal is simply to translate this incredible frontier science into actionable insights, helping you think a little differently about family health. All right, let's start by flipping conventional wisdom completely on its head. What if type 1 diabetes wasn't just some inescapable roll of the genetic dice? What if, instead, it was actually a cellular memory, inherited directly from our diet? Crazy, right? I mean, for decades, we've thought of this condition as an isolated genetic event, just bad luck. But as we're about to see, the science points to something far more dynamic, and frankly, something we have a whole lot more control over. So we're looking at a massive paradigm shift in biology here. The old model, it viewed type 1 diabetes as this inevitable genetic destiny just locked away in our DNA. But the new paradigm reveals a totally different reality. It's actually a destruction process triggered by the environment. Your genes aren't the final destination, they're really just the carriers. It's external pressures, specifically dietary toxicity, that cross these molecular thresholds, creating a memory that forces cells to trigger their own autoimmune destruction. So the genes might load the gun, but the environment absolutely pulls the trigger. And this destruction, it doesn't just happen at random. It follows a very specific 5-step chain reaction. It all kicks off with a high-fat, pro-inflammatory diet. That toxicity forces a false molecular memory right into the cellular code, an epigenetic tag, basically. This tampering sends the pancreas into severe stress, which causes biological factory failures. Those internal failures then lead to the creation of malformed proteins, and finally, the body's own immune system attacks those errors. It's this tragic domino effect of self-destruction initiated entirely by what we eat. Let's zoom way in, deep inside the pancreatic beta cell. We find something called the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER for short. You can think of it as a highly sophisticated protein factory. But when it's bombarded by a chronic high-fat diet and all that inflammation, this factory just overloads. Its metabolic capacity is completely crushed, alarm bells are ringing, and the commands to synthesize proteins get totally scrambled. It's a total collapse of the cell's natural balance, all crumbling under the weight of dietary stress. So, what actually happens when this cellular factory goes haywire? Well, the cell starts pumping out twisted, defective, mutant insulin. And our immune system, which is obviously designed to protect us, scans these deformed proteins and completely fails to recognize them. It misjudges these structural defects as invading pathogens and launches a lethal, self-inflicted attack on the very beta cells producing them. The cell literally authors its own demise. It's a biological tragedy. Now, here is where the story gets truly mind-bending. The truth about epigenetics is that this dietary toxicity, it actually gets passed down. A father's poor dietary habits and high BMI can literally pre-install metabolic defects in his offspring. This severe stress forces specific mitochondrial fragments to accumulate right within the sperm. And post-fertilization, those fragments act as epigenetic switches, prematurely activating a lifelong susceptibility to obesity and diabetes right into the child's genetic code. It is a literal paternal sperm metabolic memory carried by the father. Absolutely wild. But it's not just the fathers. On the maternal side, we have the gut epigenetic axis. A mother's diet during pregnancy isn't just direct nutrition for the baby, it's literally the source code for the baby's genes. Her diet feeds gut microbes, which then synthesize these crucial molecular bridges known as short-chain fatty acids. These molecules act as natural switches in utero, completely remodeling the infant's baseline for immunity and metabolism. The mother's diet is physically shaping the epigenetic hardware of her developing child. So this whole molecular showdown really comes down to two opposing dietary patterns. On one hand, you have a protective, high-fiber diet. This feeds beneficial flora and flips the genetic switches that block inflammation and enhance antioxidants, drastically lowering diabetes risk. Contrast that with a high-fat Western diet. That breeds pathogenic bacteria, depletes essential fatty acids, releases toxins, and actually suppresses the exact genes needed to protect the pancreas. It creates severe epigenetic instability for the baby. It's literally dietary combat against ER stress. And the consequences of that high-risk diet lead directly to something researchers call maladaptive trained immunity. A high-fat lifestyle actually rewires the underlying logic of the immune system. Immune precursor cells, which are developing deep within the fetus's bone marrow, get imprinted with false cellular memories. The system becomes locked into a chronic, highly reactive, high-alert state before the child is even born. It acts as this dangerous incubator, just waiting to launch future autoimmune attacks during childhood. When you put all these puzzle pieces together, you get what's called the synergistic evil model. It sounds dramatic, but it's accurate. Type 1 diabetes isn't just genes, and it's not just diet. It's the precise, unfortunate intersection of both. You have the genetic susceptibility acting as the carrier, and the environmental lipotoxicity acting as the trigger. The environmental stress forces the cells to release error signals, while the transgenerational tampering we just talked about has already pre-programmed the immune system to violently overreact to those exact signals. It is a perfectly coordinated storm of autoimmune self-mutilation. But hey, we aren't here to just focus on despair. We're here for empowerment, because now that we understand this mechanism, we actually possess the capacity to interrupt it. How? Through epigenetic intervention. By transitioning to a high-fiber, metabolically regulating diet during preconception and pregnancy, we can unburden that cellular factory and alleviate that severe ER stress. We can effectively reset those epigenetic switches and build a biological shield that protects the next generation from predetermined immune attacks. This is how you prevent it. So, knowing we literally hold the power of epigenetic intervention, how will you choose to shape the health baseline of the next generation? Because our genes, they are not our final destiny. They are an interactive canvas just waiting for instructions from our environment and our diets. Understanding these triggers gives us the wisdom to regulate metabolism and guard health before a condition like type 1 diabetes even starts. It all comes down to the vital life choices we make today. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive. Stay curious and keep learning.